Welcome to the Reed and Christine Halliday Executive Lecture Series. Today we feature Scott Johnson, who is the chairman and founder of AtTask, an internationally recognized software company based here in Utah, which helps thousands and thousands and thousands of companies in more than 65 countries around the world to better manage projects, people, and resources. Scott is recognized as a business leader who challenges traditional management mentalities and applies out-of-the-box thinking to solve important business problems faced by organizations today. He is recognized for helping organizations understand and organize the core work that is most important to its success. AtTask products enable business leaders to better communicate their objectives and efficiently organize their entire workplace, empowering their employees to maximize the value of their efforts. A true adrenaline junkie, Scott hasn't found a sport that involves going fast with something to strap to his feet that he doesn't like. The same passion for pushing limits to achieve excellence in extreme sports helped make AtTask a fast-growing company that has been instrumental in helping thousands of business leaders around the world empower their workforce, streamline processes, and transform their businesses. Scott is a graduate of Brigham Young University and an acknowledged expert in project management. He's been featured in such publications as CIO Magazine, Business Management Magazine, PM Network, project management I assume, and Business Week. We recognize Mr. Johnson's wife, Kristen, who is also here with us today, but she just left somewhere. Apparently she's heard the first part of the presentation. There she is. Okay, very good in the back. Thanks for coming today, Kristen. And will you please welcome me in joining Mr. Scott Johnson.
Thank you. I haven't even started yet, and my wife is already bored. That's okay. She's actually helping out with the computer. So I actually appreciate the opportunity to be here with you today. I've heard some great things about the business school here. I've heard how fast it's growing. I've heard that you've got some great programs. I've sensed the commitment of the faculty and leadership here to you as students, and I think that's great. And you know, I've been given a lot of support too. I was told before the presentation that I could swear or do whatever I wanted here today, and you know, that was very gracious. And then I've heard that that there are a few young men here who believe the scenery is better here than at the Y. I don't know what that means, but I'm happy to be here. So as I talk a little bit here, I figured I'd give you something interesting to look at while I'm introducing myself and telling a little bit about my background. I absolutely love to wakeboard and to snowboard and to enjoy the great environment that we have here in Utah. In fact, I'm a real fan of Utah, not just from a lifestyle perspective, but also from a business perspective. I absolutely love the fact that we've got 90,000 students here in this small area, and that there's a lot of really great talent here in Utah. I love the work ethic that's coming out of our young people and the universities. I love the smarts that's coming out of the education system here. I love the fact that people are committed to work, and they generally come to work with this attitude that they're going to help and that they're going to make a difference. And it leads to a really healthy business climate here in Utah, where I believe that Utah companies have a big advantage. So I'm a graduate of BYU. I graduated from BYU in 1994 with a degree in Near Eastern Studies and a minor in business. I knew that my degree in Near Eastern Studies wouldn't pay any bills, but I liked it, and that's why I did it. And I'm a big fan of doing what you like to do in life, because if you don't, you just never will be happy. But after I graduated from BYU, there's another picture, by the way, that interesting thing to look at. So that's not me. Just in case you were wondering. I was actually a little higher in mine. But so after I left BYU, I actually ended up running a marketing department in a software company. It was a computer-based training software company, kind of a crazy environment. I'll talk maybe a little bit about that in a little bit. But that opportunity led me to start a business in 1995. It was a social network for college students. It was the social network Daily Deals thing. and the internet wasn't cool back then, and neither were social networks, and that failed. But it led me to create and co-found a marketing and advertising agency here in the Valley, and that was a great opportunity. We did internet-based work for marketing organizations, and as that company grew, I really needed to know some questions that you business students are learning about businesses. Who's doing what? How much is it costing us? What's the good work we do? What's the bad work we do? How much can we do? When's it going to be done? And where are resource constraints? And so this company didn't have anything like that. And it led me to create an internal tool for that company, which became AtTask. So since then, AtTask has grown. We've got about 1,600 customers around the world. We help some really great companies. And what we help them with is project management. In case you're not familiar with project management, I thought I'd just give you just a little brief introduction to what project management is all about. So if this is the project here, this is how the customer explained it. Not really very clear, but worse, this is how the project leader understood it. This is how the engineer designed it. This is how the sales executive described it. This is how the programmer wrote it. This is how it was documented. This is what got installed. This is what the bill looked like. This is how it was supported. And this is what the customer really needed. So what project management is all about really is actually fixing all those problems. And some of you are laughing because you've maybe experienced this in real life. It's very, very true to form. I mean, you'll see this later on if you haven't already seen it. But AtTask has been able to solve these kinds of problems for companies such as Apple, Cisco, Google, General Electric, and a lot of other really cool companies that are forward-thinking in their approach to managing their people, their resources, and really helping their people participate in the process of getting work done. On the journey, I've had a lot of fun too. I've had an opportunity to set up offices in China, Japan, across Europe, in Armenia. I've got to learn about cultures. I've been humbled too as I've gone around the world and met business leaders who've come up and shaken my hand and thanked me for helping to save their business or to improve their business and make their lives better. And I've literally had the same thing happen with employees at AtTask who've come and thanked me for helping really make their life meaningful in a small way here. And that is really what this is all about and what I appreciate the most about the opportunity I've had to create a business and grow it and meet a lot of really interesting people. So I've wondered, as I was going to talk to you today, what might be of use to you. And so I put down a few thoughts here that I'd like to share over the next few minutes. Oh, by the way, AtTask just moved, and we moved into a new facility there in Thanksgiving Park. Really great office space. I guess that's my plug for our business. Okay. So, first advice, live within your means. You might have just heard this on Sunday. I didn't want this to sound like a sermon or anything to you, but this is important for anybody who's an aspiring entrepreneur. I got a picture of your next job. This could be your next job. But what do I mean by that? Well, we graduate from college, or we get a job in college, and we graduate and we get a little bit of money. Now you have a real important decision to make. What are you going to do with that money? A lot of us go celebrate. We get, new TV, we get credit cards, we get the ability to make the minimum payment on those credit cards, and we've got even more money. Maybe you get a promotion at that job you're doing great in, and so you go out and buy a car or a house, and you start to get these things, and you load up your life with things. as you keep moving up, the stuff gets more and more expensive, and you keep getting saddled with more stuff. And oftentimes we think that that's a measure of success or that a measure of freedom, that now we have all this stuff to enjoy. And that's actually not true thinking. And I want to tell you a little story about me at Task. As I have grown up and had friends that moved into bigger houses and moved into nicer, got nicer cars and nicer things. And you can ask my wife, Kristen, I'm kind of cheap, and I sort of just pretend there's no money, no matter what there is. And that actually helped, because later on, it allowed me to go and start a company where I didn't get a paycheck for over a year. And I had the freedom to be able to do that. So, while my friends were driving nice cars, this is actually the car I drove for 10 years. I hated it every single day of those 10 years. I hated it the day I bought it, but I was able to pay cash for it, and, it ran well. It never died. Sadly, it never died. But what I want you to remember is simplicity is freedom. A new house doesn't bring you freedom, neither does a TV or a car. When I was able to go out and start something new, I was able to do it without completely freaking out. I remember one Christmas, a local church group brought Christmas dinner to my family because they had just learned that my annual income for that year was zero. And if you're an inspiring entrepreneur, just remember that the difference between driving an old beater and driving a nice car might be the difference between owning 50% or 5% of your next company. And that it's that significant. So don't saddle yourself with stuff. The next thing I'd like to just briefly talk about is working hard. So there are a lot of people out there that work long hours and don't get anything done. That's not who I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is your limited resource of time. You actually have a very, very precious resource, more precious in my opinion than gold, than anything else, and that is your own time. You can't augment it. You can't replace it. Once it's spent, it's gone. It is the limited resource in your life. So I think that you can invest your time the same way that you invest your money. What would you do? What do you do with $10? You can spend it on candy and have absolutely nothing to show for it, or you can put it towards something good that might drive value in your life. The same thing is absolutely true with your time. I view every minute of time as an investment that you're making in something good in your future. So, you can spend 10 to 30-minute chunks of time on TV shows, on aimless web surfing, on playing games, or you can really invest it in a way that will have value in your life. And that has direct application to today's economy. We don't get a lot of good financial news or good any news, it seems like lately. And even when you get good news, like the market's up or something, you question if there's just something that somebody's not understanding, because there sure is a lot of bad news out there. And the market that we're facing is really tough. I've heard reports that the real unemployment rate, not the reported, but the rate that measures who's actually working, is as high as 15% unemployment. That's 1 in 6 people. We have fewer jobs today than we had in 2002. It's a really tough market. So how are you going to get a job? How are you going to keep that job? So there's a story about, and you've probably all heard it, so just bear with me, a story about 2 hikers hiking through bear country. And since we're talking about bear market, I remembered this little story. So this story about 2 hikers is they're there, and the one hiker asks the other one, how are we going to survive? And if we meet a bear, what are we going to do? And the guy says, I'm not worried at all. And the other one says, well, why are you not worried about that? And the guy says, because all I have to do is be able to run faster than you. And that's really, a good plan for us in the workplace too. We have to be able to run faster than the person next to us and the person in our department, in our company, and that is going to go a long way. I really appreciate people who go all in on a job. They're the ones who get bonuses. They're the ones who get raises. They're the ones who become leaders. They're the ones who are the go-to people. They're also always the ones who are working harder than anybody else because they have more to do, because they've taken more to do for themselves. And what I'm hearing isn't coming necessarily from high tech, but there is a shortage of people out there who will actually buckle down and work. People are expecting to just get the rewards without paying the price. And I think part of that is that, we've grown up in this participation badge environment, or the, participation badge generation. You're all winners. We don't need grades. We don't need to compete. We're all winners. We're all special. We're all going to do just fine. And if you don't, someone will take care of you anyway. And that's what we learn. And it's amazing that this is actually becoming apparent in the workplace, that we're actually believing this. It's nonsense. The success is going to go to who works. Sometimes I find that we get caught up thinking, what's the minimum that we can do and still get our job done? There's always room to do more. I remember somebody once told me, and I was the employer, this was one of my employees, told me, "You've got me 100% from 9 to 5, but don't ask me to do anything more." And, I don't think that kind of thinking works in business. I don't think that kind of thinking works for me. And 9 to 5 is the bare minimum, and it's not outrunning the hiker. It's not outrunning the bear. So in 1994, I was running this marketing department for the computer-based software company, which shall rename nameless because it was failing big time, probably because of me as a marketer, but it wasn't doing very well. And everybody knew that the company was failing. And just a quick story about how bad it was failing. So in this company, people would get their paychecks late. And there were people that actually got fired over the PA system because they came in and asked the boss for their paycheck. And he would get on the PA and fire them over the PA and have someone escort them out of the building. So when we would get our paychecks, there would only be enough for 4 of us to get our paychecks cashed. So if you remember the old movie, The Cannonball Run, it was Cannonball Run to the bank. And we would get our paychecks, and we would run to our cars, and we would break all rules that were ever written about driving to get to the bank first. I remember parking my car in the middle of the bank parking lot and running in and butting in line and giving my check to the teller and getting my cash, and then seeing a coworker drive into the drive-thru and the teller holding up the check going. And it was a stressful environment. And so everybody would play network games all day, every day. I don't know why so many people stayed there. I know why I stayed there. I'm going to share that. But they would play network games all day, every day. And I was a marketer. I had no programming background. I really, I was kind of a designer plus some other jobs while I was in college to get myself through. But while I was there, the internet was brand new. And so I thought, well, I'll make a website for the company. And I learned how to program. I learned HTML. I learned how to program JavaScript. I wrote a shopping cart in Perl back when there was another company called iMall who did the exact same thing, and they got billions of dollars for it. I wrote this shopping cart for the little marketing company. I brought in one of the very first data T1s into Orem and created an ISP, a private ISP, for the employees at the time. It was all very brand new, and I learned a ton, and I loved it. And that's really where I got introduced to technology. And me using that time in that way, at that time, gave me the freedom to go and do other things when ultimately that company did fail. The guys that were there playing games, they had fun while they were playing, but I don't think they walked away with any additional opportunities. So sometimes people feel like they're doing more on the job and they should get paid for it. They say, I would do this or that, but I'm not getting paid for it. Why should I work all night on Friday and work on Saturday if nobody else is? Trust me, what comes around goes around. And what you do will pave your own way and make your own opportunities. So, another one along these lines is to improve the things around you. There's this thinking, sometimes you'll hear managers call it employee mentality. You don't ever want employee mentality. And I love this little video, so I'm going to take 2 minutes and play this little video here. So, the idea is that it's within your power to improve everything around you. One thing that we talk about sometimes in business is called Kaizen, or having a Kaizen mind. It means that everything around you must be improved, and it's up to you to make those improvements. And that small improvements made from the bottom levels of the organization will have greater impact than top-down driven large improvements across the organization. And this has been especially important to AtTask because we've made our business challenging the current 20th century industrial mindset that it's management's job to maximize and control the resources, make them all behave like Henry Ford said they should behave on the assembly line, and that's how you get efficiencies. Today, with technology, with communication, actually the opposite is true. The more you empower, the more you enable people in the organization to solve their own problems, the more effective you are. So what we're all about at AtTask is enabling that. But it goes along with this mindset that you actually allow people to improve. Well, the flip side of that is that the people who are there working need to take ownership. The company you work for is your company. It doesn't matter if you're a janitor or the CEO. It is your company, and you can have pride in what goes on there to the same degree as anybody else in the company. You can notice things that are broken. You can make a difference. You can volunteer. It's not good enough either to just walk by and point out that something's broken. Pitch in, help out. Be a problem solver. Put on your solution glasses when you're at work, and it'll make a big difference. So there's a guy who's written a lot of books. His name is Seth Godin, and he's a great author, but he talks a little bit about today's environment. He says, today's recession is a forever recession because it is the end of the industrial age, which also means the end of the average worker. For 80 years, you got a job, you did what you were told, and you retired. People are raised on this idea that if they pay their taxes and do what they're told, there's some kind of safety net or pension plan that's waiting for them. But the days when people were able to get above average pay for average work are over. If you're the average person out there doing average work, there's going to be someone else out there doing the exact same thing as you, but cheaper. Now that the industrial economy is over, you should forget about doing just things that are assigned to you. Or never mind the race to the top, you'll be racing to the bottom. And I really believe that. Everybody in here has unique abilities, talents, insights. Everybody here can see things with fresh eyes. Everybody here can make that difference and make that contribution. Sometimes in companies you see things that are just broken. I just want to share with you that that's how AtTask came about for me. I was in a marketing and advertising company. We were doing campaigns and graphics and things for marketing organizations. And I wasn't the president of the company. I was a co-founder. And as we grew to about 25 employees, I wanted to know who's doing what does it cost, how can we do better, how can we improve the work we're doing? Are there jobs that we're always overbidding and losing money on? Are there jobs that we should do more of because they're just really profitable for us? And I wanted to know these answers. And so I started to work on software that could answer these questions for us. And I worked nights and weekends for over a year to develop that software and to roll it out within my company. Guess what? I didn't get paid extra for that. But what it did is it really opened up a great opportunity for me. So, you might have a question as you go out in the workforce. How do I get a promotion? I've had a lot of people ask me that question. I've had a lot of people throw their hat into the ring when it comes time to hire somebody higher up in the organization. And these are the questions that I go through with them. First of all, are you doing everything that you're supposed to be doing to the extent that I want a room full of you in this department? If so, congratulations, you're a model citizen. You're doing good at what you do. End of story. The next question is, okay, so if you're doing that, are you helping others around you be successful in the way that you're successful? Are you developing tools to help them be successful? Are you sharing tools you've developed for yourself that have helped you be successful? Are you generally increasing morale among the people that are around you? If the answer is yes, then great, I can consider you in a management position. If you're doing all of that, and you're helping other departments with what they're doing, helping facilitate communication between other departments, solve problems that arise between other departments, if you are leading strategic thinking in the organization, if you're driving positive change in the organization, then I can consider you for my executive team. So really, from my perspective, as you go out in the workforce and you want to know, what about my next promotion? I think the ball's in your court. So I really love people that go all in on the job. What does it mean to go all in for success? I've got a picture on my office wall that I love. It says, go big or don't go at all. It's a little phrase that comes from surfing. Basically, the idea is you have a limited amount of energy and you have a limited amount of time. There's nothing worth doing that's worth doing halfway. If you're going to do something, go big on it. And that requires that you aren't tentative about what you do. You don't, when something's good, you don't do it halfway. You don't test the waters. For entrepreneurs, it means that you can't do what you're about to do halfway. At some point, if you want to be successful, you have to take that leap. You can't be excellent at your day job and also excellent at the company you want to start. You have to make a choice. This also is true for anything that you want to be excellent at. You really have to go all in to be excellent. I love a story. There's a story about Hannibal who takes his troops, and they're going to do this impossible journey across the Alps and surprise their enemy. And it really was supposed to not be possible to do this. So what did they do after they crossed the bridges to go on this miraculous journey? Burn the bridges. That is going all in my opinion. When I started at Task, and I would like to recognize Kristen, by the way. So Kristen, turn around and wave or something. This is my wife, Kristen. And we had a house. We had 3 young children. Left the agency to go and start at Task as an official company. Traded out my equity, set up the new company and got going. And it took a second mortgage to pay for the first few employees, second mortgage plus credit cards. We weren't making any money, and never once did she ever complain. I never came home at 2 or 3 in the morning and heard her telling me to go get a real job. Of course, she was always asleep, so maybe that's why. But, I just had 100% support from her, and that was so important to me. Those of you who are entrepreneurial-minded, make sure you marry somebody that has a high tolerance for risk and stress, and you'll probably do just fine. But, we started this company, and I didn't know anything about project management. And to me, this was just like a common-sense way to get work done is what it was. And I remember going to an event and finding out that our nearest competitor had 125 employees and had raised over $20 million at the time. And I remember many, many nights in hotel rooms by myself, just laying there wondering, if I was insane and if we could possibly succeed, if we could possibly compete. 4 people against huge companies. We had other competitors, Microsoft, Oracle, HP, Computer Associates, SAP. Those are some of our competitors. And we have many, many smaller competitors too. And yet we had this can-do attitude. I remember taking phone calls where I would sit on the phone and I would tell, so a couple of examples. Sara Lee called us, Sara Lee Corporation. They had Microsoft out there for a week. They had IBM out there for a week. They had gone through the products. They had decided to look around a little bit more. On some fluke chance, they found us. I remember being on the phone saying, oh yeah, we can do that. We can do that. Yeah, we can do that too. Yeah, oh, absolutely, we do that. Hung up the phone, got on a plane and flew out there. On the plane, I wrote software. I wrote software all night long. Got there the next morning, showed them the software that I had written ever since I hung up the phone with them, where I told them that we did exactly what they wanted. And I left the place an hour later with a contract that helped our business stay alive. And we had that experience multiple times where we just went all in. We decided we could do it, and guess what? We did it. So in business, there's a phrase called the BHAG. Some of you are probably familiar with that. It comes from the Good to Great book. And basically what it means is you need to be willing to have a big, hairy, audacious goal of your own. You need to be willing to change the world in some way. You need to identify what that is. How are you going to change the world? And are you willing to go all in to do it? So remember, willingness to be mediocre is a race to the bottom. So one of the early taglines of ATTact was work hard, work smart, work happy. And I still like that. It's one of our values. How am I doing on time? Doing okay? Good. So, I remembered a little story about a sales rep, an administration clerk, and a manager who are walking to lunch. And as they were walking to lunch, they found this little lamp on the road, so they were laughing about it, and one of them picked it up and rubbed it, and a genie came out, surprise. And the genie says, I'll give you each one wish. So the sales rep goes first. He says, I want to be on the beach with not a care in the world, having a good time, and poof, he disappears. And another one wanted to go to the Bahamas and have same kind of thing, luxurious life, beach, so forth. So poof, he disappears. And the manager kind of looks and he says, all right, well, I want those two back after lunch. So the moral of the story here is you got to listen. And to work smart, you got to listen. And then you'll work happy. There's this show on TV called Gold Rush. Who watches Gold Rush? All right, you guys need to take a few more classes. So I've got you noted here. So I was watching Gold Rush. And there's this team who, they've got several acres, and their mining season's like 4 or 5 months long, and they're in Alaska. And so this team goes out there, and on their acreage, they just pull out the big machines and start chewing up ground and throwing it in the little sifter. And they're about 2 months into their season, and they haven't found any gold yet. And yet they've got the big equipment running, the excavators and everything, and it costs them money to run this equipment. And there's a guy there who has the genius idea of, let's drill some samples of the soil throughout the acreage and test it and see if there's any gold in it. And I was surprised that like half the team didn't want to do that. But the smarter heads prevailed, and they took 14 core samples throughout their acreage. And one of them had a ton of gold in it. So guess what they did? They moved all their equipment over to where the gold was and started digging there, and they started making a lot of money. I think that is very relevant in business, especially for any aspiring entrepreneur. You've got to know where the gold is, and you've got to test it. You've got to know the problem you're solving. You've got to go talk to customers. You've got to go talk to people who have the problem that you think they have. And by the way, don't go talk to your friends. Your friends like you. They'll tell you that your idea is the best idea they've ever heard. They'll tell you that they would use that product if they were the kind of person who would buy it. And so, they'll lead you astray. They'll cause you to waste a year of your life building something, spending a lot of money moving the heavy equipment, when you can really just go talk to people, take those core samples, figure out where the gold is. Then with confidence, you can go all in to make the money. So finally here, I want you to remember that there's a big picture in life. There was a survey conducted not too long ago of why people left the workplace. And these are ranked in order. Number 1 reason, not being treated with respect or dignity. Number 2 reason, prevented from making an impact on the organization. Number 3, not being listened to. Number 4, not being rewarded with more responsibility. Pay is number 5. 4 of those are very similar. They're all people issues. Pay is the only outlier there, and it's not even the most important. It did make the top 5, though. I'm amazed in business at how often our present actions influence our future reality. I like to say that your whole life is an interview, and that goes both ways. From professional to private life, from private life to professional, everything you do is an interview for some future event. And sometimes in business, people think it's okay to be rude or to disparage people just because it's business. They think it's okay to play politics to get ahead in business. Oh, but I would never, do that to my neighbor across the street. I would never do that in church, but in business, I would. To undermine others, to disrespect others when disagreements arise. The people that you encounter in work, in your professional life, your paths will cross again. The person that you're hostile to might just be that back channel reference that a future employer uses to call and ask what kind of person you are. And I do that, by the way. You have references that you'll give me, and I know they're the people who love you and think you're the greatest people on the planet, and I'll still talk to them, but I also will find people that are in your life. It might be people in your department where you are right now. It might be people that I know that know you that you haven't given me as a reference, and I'm going to check on that. And sometimes a group does need somebody to be the jerk in business, to make things happen. You have to get consensus to get anything done. And sometimes, where everybody has their own free will, the only way to get consensus is by being a little stubborn and being willing to alienate certain people. The business has to go a direction, but that's not what I'm talking about. Kindness you show today will influence a decision tomorrow. Your willingness to go beyond expectations today will open doors for you tomorrow. So one other thing, by the way, is concerning excuses. If I give you advice and you follow it and it turns out that advice is wrong, you're still wrong. And that's how it works out in business. It may be surprising, but you are always responsible for the actions you take. And there will be times where it's easier to do nothing or say nothing or do what your boss told you even though it doesn't quite seem right. And if you do that, you know what? The next guy may come in and say, you did that, you were wrong. You need to be responsible and act on your own conscience. So I've learned over the last 10 years that it's really building software that people love isn't as easy as it seems. It's really easy to build software that people hate. It's really hard to build software that people love. I've had an opportunity to build an international sales team, which was great education. I've learned how to create and run a marketing organization and how to create a really dynamic brand that's looked to for leadership really throughout the world. I've had an opportunity to create business entities in China and Japan, across Europe. I've learned the importance of hiring right and establishing a culture from the get-go. I've learned, and I'm learning, really, that successful management is about building people up. And this is a huge, valuable education. Regardless of what happens in life, wherever I go after @Task, this education is going to serve me for the rest of my life, which I hope there's more than half of left. And I would challenge you to value your education. This is a huge opportunity that you have to get this education. It will serve you in your life. And don't be afraid to explore things while you can. The end. Right. So I guess we've got, how many, 5-10 minutes? Got about 5 minutes. If anybody has any questions, I'll do my best to try and answer. Hand in the back.
How do you feel about having friends in your business, starting a business with friends?
Yes. The question was, how do I feel about having friends in my business or hiring friends? You know, that's a tough question. I hired Kristen's brother. How's that for gutsy? Brian. And I sat down with him when I hired him, and I said, okay, Brian, this may not work out. And if I were you, I would plan on not being here in 6 months. And if you can handle that, you know, if that's not awkward for you, great. It'll be good on your resume. It'll be a good experience. You don't have a job right now. You don't have anything to lose. But if you dig in and you're successful, it's going to work out great. And so I think that, you know, if you set expectations up front, what you have to be willing to do, though, is not give anybody a pass because they're your buddy. You know, not give your family member a pass because they're your family member. You have to expect excellence from everybody. And they need to understand that you expect that. And it's nothing personal if they decide not to give you excellence. And Brian's fantastic, by the way, and has done awesome things for @Task. He's been there for over 5 years. Any other question?
How difficult was it for you to learn programming languages, and would you recommend business management students to learn programming?
You know, again, it's do what you love. I remember, I guess I kind of liked programming, even though I never got into it. I remember in the 8th grade reprogramming my math professor's math program so that when he was doing the overhead presentations, it would do wrong answers. And I just thought it was great to point out that's not a right answer. You know, I love computers. I love technology, and so it kind of was something I gravitated to. I was as slow at learning programming as anybody else, and it was definitely a foreign language for a while. I made up for it with that hard work lesson, you know, the nights and weekends thing.
What role does humility have in a competitive business environment?
Okay, the question, what role does humility have in a competitive business environment? That's also a tough question because there are some raging egos in competitive business. And there are people who do walk all over everybody. And sometimes it seems like the big jerks are the ones that win. And sometimes I think maybe it probably sways that direction because they are willing to walk over anybody to get what they want. That said, I think people recognize humility and people are willing to follow humility. And humility doesn't mean that you're not willing to make a decision, that you're not willing to expect things from people. Humility means that you're willing to share the credit. Humility means that it's not your way or the highway, you know, that you're willing to explore the facts, that you're willing to have a dialogue, that you're willing to really live by a mantra of best idea wins. And so I don't think that you necessarily have to lose because you're humble, but you definitely see a lot of egos, especially out in the software world. Don't need to name any names. So the question is where I learned to program, and it was books. Yeah, just just doing a lot of reading and plugging through it, trying to find my way around. You know, one of the first guys I hired at AtTask had a CS degree, and he knew how to structure things and, you know, rewrite everything I had done so it was better. And, you know, if I were to do it again, I would just let someone like that do it.
Maybe one more question.
Yeah, if you were a student all over again, and you had the choice to either work more or do more school, what would you recommend?
The question, if I were in school again, would I work more or do more school? I love school, by the way. I had over 200 credits when I graduated from BYU, and you know, I had classes I took all these classes that I liked, and at the same time, so I always had 18 to 21 credits, and I always had at least 2 jobs. So my advice would be do both. Why not? You're only young once, right?
Please put your hands together one more time for Mr. Scott Johnson.
Thank you.